joy from out of the blue.
The Giant Gila Monster, 1959. I didn't actually know there was a such thing as a Gila monster until I watched this movie. I was like, let me just check out what type of lizard this actually is that they're using for the film. So there is an actual Gila monster, but they didn't use one for the movie. It's a Mexican beaded lizard they used instead. First of all, I didn't know that such a thing existed, and the fact that it does and they didn't even use it for its own movie, it's like it's kind of weird. But what did you think of this movie?
I thought it was camp. I thought it was. I wasn't overly impressed by it. It obviously was a silly monster movie, and it's laughable. But yeah, it gave me some unintentional laughs. I didn't think a whole lot of it. In fact, I was kind of bored throughout most of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about these drive-in error monster movies like this, or science fiction monster movies, where there's a giant something or there's an animal something. With the more low-budget versions of these, they tend to be just a lot of middle-aged guys in offices doing a lot of talking. You know, they say there's a lot of camp value to these movies. I think there's some, but especially with this movie, it just seems like they're just trying to make a regular movie. It just so happens to be super low budget. I didn't get the impression like they were trying to do something tongue in cheek. I thought it was a genuine effort. It was just really, really, really low budget.
Yeah, no, I thought they were going legit, and I didn't realize that wasn't a Gila monster they were using. I just assumed it was, but no, I assumed they were trying to make a legit horror movie, but I just to me it just didn't fly.
Yeah, because I mean, these characters are so earnest and they try to make them so likable, especially the lead character, Chase Winstead, played by Don Sullivan. They went overboard in trying to make him likable. His father died. He's taking care of his sister who can't walk, and she has these braces on her legs. And every turn of the corner, he's helping someone and doing it for nothing. I mean, they were going overboard, like trying to make you like this guy. It worked.
And he's a future pop star too. And he had at least 3 songs in there that he performed for us.
Yeah, they were trying to make him into the next Elvis or something. They really went hard. I found it interesting too because it kind of reminded me of The Blob, where the lead actor in there was Steve McQueen.
Steve McQueen.
And he was in his 30s playing a teenager. And here,
this guy was 30 also. Yep.
I found that funny. They did in the scripts, they say he was a little bit older than the other kids, so they did try to mention that. The script wasn't terrible in a certain way, in that they really did set up the nitroglycerin as to like how dangerous it was, and they explained how he could use it because he said his father showed him how to use it. So they did set things up in a proper way a script would. In some of these low budget films, the script is like god awful. Now, the jokes aren't funny, but the structure seems to be there.
Obviously, you knew darn well once they mentioned nitroglycerin, they're going to come back to that for some, or they're doing that for some reason, and you knew that was going to be showing up at the end. It reminded me of I don't know, a Scooby-Doo episode or something where something pops up in the beginning and you know it's going to be used again. So it was clear.
Yeah. So like I said, I mean, I agree with you. This is not great, but I do think it was a genuine effort. I do think there's some good structure there. It's just a lot of talking scenes didn't really do it for me. A lot of static talking scenes, just guys in the police station, different places. The one thing that for such a film that was trying to be lighthearted with the comedy, trying to be earnest with the likable characters, there were a few things it did that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. They used drunk driving a lot for comedy. Yep. They use it more than once. I'm like, this is not something like you should be embracing.
Yeah, you can't do that today.
No. And also, like, not all the characters were likable, but the one character they kind of made sort of like unlikable or annoying was the father of the first kid that died. And that kind of rubbed me the wrong way as well, because like he's just a parent genuinely concerned about his dad, and they're using him as like the heel because like he wants answers, and that was kind of weird. But aside from like little things like that, I thought the movie was pretty good. Not pretty good, but I thought it was decent. Not good, decent. The highlights for me would be everything with the miniatures, because I was very worried at first when you saw the Gila monster or the beaded lizard, is that they didn't have anything there. It was just cut away to the lizard, cut to the people, cut to the lizard, cut to the people. I'm like, is this going to be the movie? That's fucking terrible. But eventually at the end, they did use some miniatures. I thought the train sequence was fun. The dance hall was fun. And the final scene with the glycerin, all that worked for me. I thought it was comical when they cut to the footage of the miniatures and you had real people screaming while you saw this lizard playing with the toys. That was kind of the highlight for me.
Was your train sequence really dark? I don't know if maybe my copy was bad. Not that there's great copies of this one out there, but it was really dark in that scene for me, and I was having some difficulty figuring out what was exactly happening there.
I don't think I don't remember it being particularly dark. I do know like it seemed like there was different film stock, literally from scene to scene, or sometimes from shot to shot. The quality of the film changed. Also, the day cutting from like day to night within one scene, where it's just like they're driving, it's daytime, he looks at something, then it's nighttime. Like all of that stuff was kind of weird. But the actual darkness of the film itself I didn't really notice that too much.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean the miniature stuff worked. The problem for me is that all of that stuff was like 5 minutes long. You know, and that doesn't really make up a lot of the movie. And then for the rest of the movie, you're just like, you know, watching these kind of like mundane scenes of like not much going on with characters that are likable but aren't interesting.
That was by far my biggest gripe of this movie. Just not enough action. That Gila monster doesn't show up. Although, I mean, after he knocks those kids off the road at the beginning of the movie, there's a long gap, I think, before we even know what's going on in this movie. Between that and the train, I think a good 40 minutes may have passed where not much happened.
Yeah. Were those miniature sets really that expensive? That's the first thing that popped in my mind when they did the train sequence. I'm like, it took them this long to have miniatures. It's like, was it really that expensive to get those toys, you know, or like whatever? Because I think like more of that would have made this movie more interesting. I don't think it quite deserves the cult status I've read that it has, because there's just not enough of the good stuff. The good stuff is good, but you know, unless you're patient, I would likely just like skim through it and really just watch like, you know, maybe the last 20 minutes or so once the miniatures come into play. There are worse ways to spend your time, but there are also better ways to spend your time, I would say.
Which is interesting because the movie itself is only 74 minutes long. So, but there were some points in there where it was a long 74 minutes.
There's 70 of those minutes that were very long. I put it that way. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think I have a desire to watch this one again, but who knows?
Yeah, this is more of a one-time watch, unless maybe you watch the MST3K version,
right,
where you could laugh along with them. But yeah, aside from that, it's good to say you've watched it and leave it at that.
Let children laugh, the Lord said laugh. Children laugh, the Lord said laugh.